Andrew. Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight to celebrate Sandra Cisneros' new book, Marchita, I Remember You. It's a story published in a beautifully designed bilingual book in English and Spanish in collaboration with the translator Liliana Venezuela. I'm Donna Seaman, an editor at a book review magazine called Booklist here in Chicago. I'm a longtime Cisneros reader and admirer. I'm thrilled and honored to be here. Welcome, Sandra.
Thank you. We go back a long while, don't we?
We do. Now, we last spoke online in March when the Chicago Literary Hall of Fame presented you with the Fuller Award, which you so richly deserved. And I want to let everyone know that you can find a video of that event and a wonderful booklet in tribute to Sandra at the website, chicagoliteraryhalloffame.org. I highly recommend that for lots of literary treasures, including Sandra.
Thanks for the plug.
Well, yeah. So the Fuller is an award for a Chicago author who has made an outstanding lifetime contribution to literature. And indeed, Sandra, that is you. You were born in Chicago, a city that shapes much of your work, your fiction, your poetry, your essays, even as your books, including The House on Mango Street, are read the world over. I will also name your novel Caramello, Para Amor, a beautiful illustrated bilingual story, A House of My Own, your essay collection, not to be missed, and poetry collections Loose Woman and My Wicked, Wicked Ways, as well as books for children. You've won many awards. I won't name them all, but a MacArthur Genius Fellowship is one, the PEN America Literary Award, the National Medal of Arts, the Ford Foundation Art of Change Fellowship, the PEN Nabokov Award for Achievement in International Literature. So I'm so happy to be speaking with you, Sandra.
And I am with you. I say that sincerely because we always have great conversations.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And it's such a great to celebrate with you tonight in Chicago. I know we have lots of admirers out there. If people have questions, you can type them into the chat. I will try to catch them later as we go on. But let's begin with the book. This is the story of three young women seeking their fortunes in Paris. One, our narrator, is from the U.S. Another is from Argentina. The third is from Italy. So, Sandra, I thought we could begin with you reading a paragraph to give us a little glimpse of the two of the characters, Marchita Impala. And this description is authored by Karinas.
And I have the book in audio, too, if you want to hear the rest of the story with me reading it with two actors that play the other two women.
Oh, I have to listen to that.
Yes, that came out today.
Yes.
Okay, here we go. Marchita and Paula, suntanned and pretty, a tabby kitten and a golden palomino. I meet them at La Peña, the Latin American party at 1 Rue Montmartre, ground floor rear. A damp room taller than it is wide, stinking of smoke, mold, red wine, sewage, and patchouli. Silvio Rodriguez from the tape deck, lights covered with gels, and our faces glowing red like a poster by Toulouse-Lautrec. People seated on every space, including the floor. You have to be careful not to step on anyone.
Oh, thank you so much. So that sets the scene for us. They're in Paris. They have no money. The third character is Karinas, who is in Chicago. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about the origins of each of these young women.
Each of the characters? Well, like a lot of my work, it always begins from some autobiographical place. It starts there and then it goes somewhere else. So I did begin it based on a journey I made after I finished House on Mango Street. I had a Urail pass, but I finished the book on November 30th, 1982. And I started the Urail pass at the worst possible time of the year, December. So I was traveling around and it was very bad weather and my funds were limited. And, to save funds, I would often sleep on trains or anyone offered me a couch or a floor. That's what I would do, when you're young. But I was actually 8, and my protagonist is 20. And I was trying to get over being afraid of traveling because I thought, that's what writers do. I thought, if you want to be a writer, I didn't know how to be a writer. I saw writers in movies. They were always traveling and dancing on tables and throwing their typewriters out of a window by the sea. They were on mountains typing with the ocean view. That's what I wanted to be. I didn't know how to get there, but I was trying. And it was during that real journey I made when I was just about to turn 29, during a very hard part of the journey, when my funds were running out and I was meeting people in different places, whether it was on an island, on the Spanish coast, or in Greece, or in Italy, or in the former Yugoslavia, or in Paris, or the south of France. I just kept meeting women, and when you're drifting about like that, what I call like a cloud, you're very anxious when you find other people who can speak your language, and especially who take care of you when you're homeless like that. So it was based on that initial journey. And then I started creating, these 3 women became composites. They didn't begin like that. They began based on real women. And then they became composites of several women, including the I character that's based on me. She surprised me, took off, and the more I wrote, the more I let them go where they wanted to go. And then it wasn't until I finished it that I realized, I've written about so many women I know, including people in the United States and people that I met traveling and people I'm related to and people I mentored. So I can't really say that it's just my story. It's like House of Mongoose did. I always begin from some emotional memory and then it starts collecting the stories that I've witnessed or that people have shared with me.
Yes. Memory is so important to this book. And there's 2 elements early on that really set the scene. The first one is in the present of the novel. Karinas in a Chicago 3-flat, like your classic Chicago place. And she's stripping varnish off a dining room hutch, which to me was just like the most beautiful, homey way of talking about excavating the past. And then
you thought of that, right? But I didn't think of it. It comes this way, and then afterwards, you tell me I'm brilliant. I think, I guess I must be. I wasn't thinking, I'm just feeling when I write. But that really, that part about Karinas stripping the varnish, that really happened to me when I was very young, before I went off to Europe at 28. I had this crazy anarchist boyfriend, Richard, who was a carpenter, and he owned this, really kind of sleazy building, to tell you the truth. He should have been gutted, but it was this, Pilsen building that probably is now worth a lot, but back then, was just dust and despair. And he was always like, hammering walls down and, like you see in those TV shows, but he was one man and it would take forever, like years. And sometimes when I would, I don't know why, but I would stay there in this, this godforsaken house that was with no heating and beams and ceilings missing. It was like something out of World War II, after, like Dresden, after the bombs, or Berlin. I got to write about Richard, right?
Yes, yes.
Richard, where are you? But anyway, Richard would teach me to do things. He thought I was kind of like a princess. Well, maybe I was. Well, so I was. And he would give me things like like a hammer. Okay, knock down that wall, or a little butane torch and a little scraper. And I had never picked up any of these things. What do I do with this? Well, all you have to do is turn this on and work on this woodwork. That's how he would get free labor. He would just I'll make dinner, you do, okay. And then I would be scraping. It was so much work. I think I did that much during all the years we knew each other. But it was
it's hard.
Stripping. And somehow when I was writing this story, it floated up. And I don't know how, we all know things sometimes that no one in our family knows. I always tell young writers, write about the things that you know that no one else knows, even if it's something stupid like scraping a wall. And so I put that in there as a little button, not thinking about it. And now I see how it's really about her scraping memory in the past. It works up brilliantly, and you think I'm such a genius, but I was very intuitive. That I am.
Right. Well, that's the most powerful art. Like if you set out to try and contrive something like that, it wouldn't be as powerful.
No, I just write buttons, and I always tell younger writers, write these little things that only you know, that no one else in your family knows, that you've never told anyone, and write about these little buttons that it's only yours, and you'll find a place for it later. Just fill up a jar with these little buttons. Just write it, and you think about arranging it later. Don't think so much. Just feel, write these things as if they're happening right now.
Exactly. So this is such a concise novel or novella. And
it really is.
Isn't it? And you know what? I have to tell you, the first time I read it, because of the way things are now, I read it on the screen. And, I was completely immersed. Then when I was so happy to get the book and I read it, I kept thinking, wait a minute, this is so many less pages than I thought. I had the feeling that it was really large. It is.
It is.
But in that poetic way. So I wonder if being a poet enables you to write fiction that is distilled so beautifully as this is. Do you think that's the connection?
I've always been a poet and a fiction writer at the same time, even though no one knew it. Maybe I didn't know it, but I've always written. Even when I started writing at 11 years old, I was writing poetry and stories. I didn't start to really merge them together consciously until I was in graduate school. But I've always been very much a lover and reader of poetry and a lover of experimental fiction. So even though people may not realize that, but that's what I've always been attracted to. So when I wrote this book, I like every piece of fiction that I write, every sentence, I write it as if it was a poem.
Yeah.
I do work on every line. If I move one word, I have to redo the whole sentence. And of course, that affects the whole paragraph. So there was a lot of rewriting, even though it's a short story. Or maybe it's not a short story, because I see it as a cross between a short story and a novella, because it is very dense. And there's a universe in these pages. So I don't know what genre it is. I cross a lot of borders with genres in my writing. And I tried to make it even like a full-length novel, but it didn't want to be that. And I gave up and just let it be what it wants to be. I think it's a nice length for a performance. Okay, alert out there, Chicago actors. This would be a nice performance piece. I wouldn't be averse to someone in Chicago, working at, because it's there. It's easy to adapt. It's 4 actors, 1 man who to do all the male parts, 3 women, and it's ready to go. It's the right length for someone to sit, and then one act.
It's the right length to read too. I mean, it doesn't need any more, and in fact, it merits rereading. I mean, it was a great experience to reread it. I really enjoyed it.
I had, performing it made me realize
for the
audiobook that it can work really well on the stage, because I was working with professional actors, and practicing it with people here in Mexico, and practicing it in Spanish, which is the first time I've read my own stories in Spanish, made me realize, hey, this could work on the stage easily, with lighting and scenes being, coming in and out with lighting could work really well.
I can see it.
Mm-hmm. Maybe in Chicago, because
let's hope.
I know that it begins and ends in Chicago, and I like that I'm still writing about Chicago.
Oh, me too. I always see the city in a new way from your writing.
Thanks.
I do want to say, though, that much as I can picture that sort of stage production. As a novel or a novella, the descriptions are so rich. I mean, just that one paragraph that you read, I mean, the detail is phenomenal, and it's so visceral. I mean, it's so.
Well,
These,
even if it was a stage production, because the whole story is like a letter. You know how sometimes you think of somebody you knew a long time ago and you start writing to them in your head?
mm-hmm.
You never get around to writing a letter, searching for them. You just think these things. And I think that, I think the story's an unwritten letter, it's just thinking it. So it would work.
Yeah, well,
Would work.
I mean, that's so what this is, because in fact, this is told partly in letters. We have Karinas' narration, and she's a great storyteller because she's you. And then we have the letters from Marchita and Paolo that pick up the story after they part ways from Paris. And so you do this great time folding and time spiraling where we have Karina in the present remembering the past. Then we have the letters that she shares with us. And I will say this is a beautifully produced book because the letters are in different typefaces. Marchita's is in one, Paolo's is in another, and then Karina's narration is in a third. And details like that really add to the texture of the story. Yeah, here's a page. It's probably impossible to see, but there's different fonts.
Yeah, we had to decide that because we thought, Paula would maybe write things in print, and Pufina would have curly handwriting as described in the story. And I hope that people would like that, and it would help them to differentiate the characters. But I like it. The book design is so nice, and Perry de la Vega did the cover design, and I think there was another designer for the interior. I guess I'm so pleased with it physically.
Yes, exactly.
What a nice job they did.
It's one of those. So one side here, Spanish, and then when you
and then you
this
can
way,
you can flip it, and just
it's a flip. So that is beautiful. But yes, and the photograph, very beautiful. So it's about memory. And well, it's about a lot of things, but I wanted to mention one other, what you call a button. And this also really jumped out at me, that Karina tells us that she took lots of photographs, and this was in the old days when people had film in their cameras, and she came back and she wanted to develop the film, and there were no images on there. So she was left with only her memories. And I wonder if you could talk a little bit about memory and especially undocumented parts of your life.
Well, this is interesting because in real life, the people that the people that had sparked this story, there were two women, but one was not from Italy, one was from Argentina, and I just made the one from Italy, based on a couple of people, but the one from Argentina, she really had written to me, and it sparked this story. And I was carrying that year, because of my NEA grant, I bought myself a nice Nikon camera, the old ones with the film, and I documented. A lot of those photos are in my book, House of My Own. So I was photographing quite a bit at that time, and I really did photograph a lot of the women I met. I'm sorry I didn't photograph every single one, and I remember everybody's names, but my Paris chapter, which was so cold and depressing, only no photos appeared, not just one, none. For some reason, and I think it was like divine providence said, we're not going to give you any photos because you have to make this part up. You have to draw it from all of the women that you met from all the countries, not just, but you're going to place it in this time in history in your life, in this very uncomfortable time that woke me up to what it must have been like for my father traveling as a undocumented person. When he came to the United States, he bought false papers in Nuevo Laredo and crossed with this papers that he bought from a nefarious character. This I found out only after
Wow.
and on Finding Your Roots, thanks to Skip Gates. And then he was drafted under his false identity and served. Why? I'd like to ask. My father served under these false identity, and
Wow.
later on he was in the service, and this is World War II, during the years of great casualties, but fortunately he was at the tail end of the war. He cleared up his identity and became a U.S. citizen. So that's how my father did it. But anyway, that whole story is, made me realize my father had told me about how when he had no money, or when someone picked his pocket when he was going home, he got stuck in Louisiana and told his tale to another serviceman, and that serviceman was a Tejano, a Texan, loaned him some money and said, "Don't worry, you can pay me whenever." So these stories of brown and white people befriending my father. I remember he told me about a nice couple in Dallas who were very kind to him. Who knows why people were kind to my father. He was kind of charming. And, he just made his way with very little resources, had some really hard stories. And I was reminded of that as I was traveling in Paris. And I said, wow, now I understand, when you have nothing and no one, how much you rely on the kindness of strangers. And it made me sensitive to immigrants now, who are coming through Mexico into the United States. And, just the incredible capacity for human beings to be kind. There's that cruelty too, but I hope I was celebrating the kindness of strangers in this book.
Yes, very much so. And what I kept thinking about was these women become friends, and Marchita just invites Karinas to live with her. She lives in a horrible, really terrible little place, but she welcomes her, and they share a bed, and they're so poor. But they have a united front that they present to the world. And what I kept feeling in reading this was just how courageous women have to be, especially then. I mean, still now, but everything is dangerous for a woman.
I wish someone had told me how dangerous it was going to be, and how stupid I was going to be, what I call la vida boba. After talking to my friend Ruth Bahar, we talked about boba moments in our lives when we've been really stupid. La vida boba. There have been moments when I say, oh, how was I so trusting and so naive? And I wasn't even 20, I was 28. But see, that was the whole reason of the trip. I didn't want to be afraid. And I wanted to be able to go to any country in the world and to do it alone. It was, my baptism in a way, to be able to travel as a woman alone. And I found women who were traveling or living alone, like the Marchitas and the Paulas. I remember running into at least 2 or 3 Mexican women traveling alone with a backpack. And that's so, unusual now. So imagine back then. I thought that, and then later on I would meet some of those women, like my translator Liliana Valenzuela and Tammy Gomez, the Fort Worth poet. These women also have taken that risk of saying, okay, yes, we are terrified of traveling and our family doesn't allow us to go to the corner alone, but we're going to do it anyway so that we can get over being afraid. And I made a lot of mistakes, but fortunately, I had guardian angels. Yeah. And some of those guardian angels are the women I met.
That's very interesting. It the atmosphere that you describe in this cold and chilly, threatening Paris. There's moments of real humor as well. I mean, it's heartbreaking, and the word bittersweet kept coming into my mind because even at the dark moments, Karinas survives because we meet her at the beginning. But also there's some very hilarious moments, and I wonder if you could talk a little bit about the humor.
Well, which ones are hilarious to you, Donna?
Well, how about I don't want to give away too much, so I'll just say one word: shoplifting.
Oh, you know what? Anytime you read anything and anything I write where there's la vida boba, the real stupid thing, That happened to me. That happened to me with a character that was based on Martha and another woman, not from Italy, but these three women, I'm the third. We happened to be in one of these, Gallery Lafayette, I think it was. We didn't have any money. We just wanted to get out of the cold and, just window shop. But I didn't know that one of the women had a habit. And just as we're departing, we get whisked by these men and say, come downstairs to the offices. And I thought, oh my God, they're doing this because we're Latinas, Oh, I felt so angry that we had just been profiled for our race. And I was really upset. And they said, take everything out of your pockets. And I remember I had my passport because I always carried my passport. I threw it on the desk. I said, they will hear from the American embassy. And, the other two women, one emptied her purse in her pocket, but one of them really did have some gloves in her pocket. I don't really remember how many or what color, but I thought it would be nice in the story if she stole three different for each of them. That would be a kind of nice Christmas gift from a kleptomaniac, And that really did happen. And I was so shocked because I've never stolen anything. And to be caught like that in a foreign country, it was so embarrassing and horrible. And,
yes,
the things that happen to you and you wish you could forget.
Oh, yes.
That's what you need to write about, the things you wish you could forget. Those are the best things.
Good advice. Yes. Well, it's a great scene, and there's many scenes like that where you think one thing's going to happen, but another happens. Usually that's good.
Not written, Donna, of all the moments that I've just done stupid things or stupid things that happen. You could lock me up for life and I would never have enough time because we all make such stupid mistakes, right? Especially even now, that I'm not ashamed to say I'm still kind of innocente. A lot of things happen to me and then I think, oh, how did that happen to me? So, you know what they're good for? Fiction, poetry, literature, essays. That's what makes a piece of writing interesting. That's what you have to do when you get these kind of lemons. You make lemonade. You write about them.
Write about it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's great. There's also, so another thing that's funny, and this is a very serious book. I'm not trying to downplay that, but I want readers to discover all this for themselves. But I just have to ask you if you would reveal the source of Karinas' nickname, because I thought that was very funny.
Yeah, in real life, when I was traveling with Italians, I met two Italian women on a train in Milano, and I was going to Paris, and I met them in the Milano train. We were sharing a train compartment, and I just, I was friends with them in Italy, actually, after Paris or before, I don't remember, but the two women from Milano, and one was tall and one was short, one was blonde and one was dark. And they taught me the song for Italian Smurf, the Smurf cartoon character. His name is Poofy. And I don't know if they sang it, but they taught it to me. I wrote it down in my notebook. And they would make me sing it because they thought it was cute. I didn't speak any Italian, but I could sing this song on command, and they started calling me Pufina. So when I had to create the character, I said, she has to have a name that sounds like but isn't Pufina, and that would make sense, with why they would nickname her that. And of course, in my notebook, I had written the song down. What do you do with these little trivia they're useless to humanity until you put them in a story, And I can't forget this flotsam and jetsam, these nonsense details. I said, I'll put it in the story. And then it evolved that the character needed a name. And then I thought, Karina, that sounds like Pufina. That makes sense.
That makes sense.
That came about. And the funny thing is that I had more stanzas. I know more. And I can sing that song, but I don't want to get arrested because we don't have the rights. So I only put a little excerpt. But it goes like this. Da 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 dum, da 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 da, da 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 dum, da 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 dum. And I hope I don't get arrested for just humming that.
We won't tell. No one will tell. Oh, Sandra, that is so hilarious because here's, me, the serious critic, the reader, and I'm like, what is this referencing? So I'm online trying to figure out. I'm like, it's Smurfs.
It's Smurf. And we searched all over. We really wanted to put like the whole song, but it was a mystery of the universe to try to find the composer. So if the composer is out there, we give our gratitude and for writing that song that so fascinated my Italian friends that they taught it to me.
Hilarious. Yes, I found the lyrics online in Italian and the magic of Google Translation. And there it was. And I'm sitting here
but you can't find the songwriter. We searched for years. We tried. So
isn't that amazing? That is very funny.
Yeah.
So
when you're with young women, I was 28, but for some reason I attracted women who were like in their 20s, and that's how I was able to gather some of their stories and things. They were younger. They were always younger when I was traveling. I was 28, and very rarely were they my age. They were usually 19, 20, 21. And so they liked things like that.
They like cartoons, right?
Yeah, singing the cartoon songs and teaching it to me. And, I found them interesting.
Well, Karina's a very serious and she's a character with a lot of weight on her and a lot of sorrow and disappointments. But when she tells this little story about being Pafina, and when I figured out what that little song was, level, it's very funny, very sweet.
Well, it's got to make you laugh. It wouldn't be a fun story if it didn't make you laugh and cry.
Yes, right. Exactly.
Absolutely.
Exactly. That's amazing. Well, I don't want to go too far because but I do want to say about Karina that she's a big reader, that books really, really matter to her. And I wonder if you could talk a little bit about
this part is not simply autobiographical. I was gathering it from women who are cousins of mine, who are friends of mine, who have been my students, who are my colleagues. A lot of them aren't writers, but they're big readers. They're sophisticated readers. And they may have a job that sometimes people don't recognize how valuable and intelligent they are. They just see them as like, a clerk or somebody who works customer service. And, they don't realize that these women have a very profound interior lives.
Right.
And I found that with many people that I know, sometimes they get dismissed because of their age or their size or their color or their gender, but they're like brilliant, and you could talk to them about any book. And I wanted to write about that, those kinds of women who maybe are serving you coffee and pie, but have very rich interior lives. Maybe they don't have anyone to share it with. Maybe they do. And, it just, it made me feel protective of women I love, whether they are friends or relatives of mine that perhaps wanted to live my life and didn't get to do that. Maybe they're the owners of, like my cousin, of a hair salon, or maybe they're widows, or maybe they're social workers, like some of my ex-writing students. But they have I feel protective of them and how people dismiss them from their exterior and have no idea who they really are.
That's right.
I hope that I was celebrating those kinds of women. And then someone reminded me today, well, you've written about immigrants and you've written about abortion, both in a timely, moment in history for both.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. I hadn't realized that today. Well, I knew about the immigrants part, but I hadn't realized about the abortion part in a historic moment in Mexico, where the prohibition of abortion is being challenged by the Mexican Constitution. And of course, in my old home state of Texas, where abortion rights have been taken away. And I just don't understand why, I don't understand, if you don't believe in abortion, then that should be fine, that's your belief. But I don't understand why it should be like across the board for everybody. That part I don't understand. I really believe in, abortion is such a contentious issue. It's a difficult issue. If I was in a position like that, I would want to make that decision, as hard as that would be, according to my beliefs, but I wouldn't want someone else telling me what to do. And I just find that here we are in 2000, are we at 21 already? 2021,
yes,
and that we're discussing these kinds of issues about women and their bodies, and
It's, right. I was definitely thinking about that today, rereading your book and reading that scene. And, it's shocking to me that people, because Roe v. Wade was, in the early 70s, it was a long, long time ago. But
yeah, I do understand everybody's on a different spiritual path. I do understand,
right.
And I respect that. But I respect that you should make that decision for your own self. I shouldn't impose mine, and you should impose yours, and everybody's on their own sacred path and on their own spiritual path.
Exactly.
And I just wish there was some place that we were communicating and not so about many things where there's polarization happening in the world. And yet, what is the pandemic but an awakening of how interconnected we are? I would think that there could be a way to find a resolution if people could come together to some place in the middle that wasn't so black and white. That's what I would like to see. Because, I have a brother his family is completely anti-abortion, and I have to respect his right, but he also has to respect mine as well. So people that have these strong decisions are people we love, the people we're related to, and there has to be some place that is possible. For the universe to contain these contradictions, there has to be some place where we can come to some progress in communication. That's what I think.
Yes, no, I completely agree with you. And that part of what's so shocking about this is the long strategy of it. The plotting, the groups that were just so concentrated on undoing that law, working on this, devoting their lives to it, when they could be helping people. In my feeling, it's my personal feeling, that if you have that kind of conviction about life, to help people, not to harm people. So it's hard.
Yeah,
it's very baffling.
It's a very complicated issue, but I wish that we could come to some place of communication and dialogue. I just don't see it happening any other way. Oh, well, anyway, we opened up a big can of worms there.
And women, which this book is full all about that, all about great empathy for all different kinds of women and different lives that women lead, including reading. So I was thinking about the reading in your book and how much I enjoyed the By the Book column in the New York Times that came out last week.
And Donna, can you speak up? Someone's having a hard time hearing your mic.
Can you hear me? Can you hear? Is this better out there, my friends?
I think you need to even try a little more.
Yes. Okay. I put my volume up. Let me put it up again.
Yeah, put it up. Someone's saying, can Donna's mic
that's Carla.
To hear her better?
Okay. I hope that's better. I will speak louder.
Okay.
So, talking about reading and how important books are, last week you had the By the Book column in the New York Times, which the title was Sandra Cisneros loves to read about women waging battle.
I thought that was wrong.
I thought that was a really strange title, but it's a
I thought, what is this, a National Enquirer?
Yeah. Okay, we could complain about the New York Times, but
No. It's just it was deceiving. It was deceptive journalism. That title, that headline.
That title. It's a classic, sensational title. But aside from that, your answer was phenomenal. You list so many books, so many exciting books. And
well, I'm ashamed to say that's because my bedside table was a mess. And thanks to this interview, I had to clean, you know. I had towers and things that I had not put away. And I felt kind of embarrassed, but you know, how many books I had. Just read something and then start saying, so, but on the other hand, it was great because I got to mention so many books. Oh. Can't hear. No, can't hear. You're muted. You know what? You're muted, Donna. I can see the mute button. Okay, while you figure that out, I'm going to read. Somebody says, can I read a portion in Spanish? So while you figure that out, I'm going to read this. This is from the Spanish section, and I'll read one paragraph while Donna's having her technical difficulties cleared up. Me pone de malas contar el dinero cuando me pongo a ver lo poco que me queda. Trato de no pensar en ello. Cada día tengo menos y menos. El dinero escurriéndose como en los teléfonos públicos franceses, donde dejas caer las monedas en la máquina y las ves caer a todas con un clic por los conductos de plástico como una cascada. El teléfono traga y traga, quiere más y más francos, pero no quiero volver a casa. He venido desde tan lejos porque París es la ciudad de los sueños. Todavía no, todavía no, todavía no. Okay, I read that. And I see a little slash by your mic, Donna. And how can we unmute you? I don't know, but we will maybe, did you press something when you were trying to raise your volume? Where's Andrew? It needs to be, someone says, I think it needs to be clicked on. Check if the choice in mic is the one she is using. Check the audio on the computer. Try clicking the 3 dots on the chat. Does that work? Did you unplug your earphones? Oh no. Well, I'll just have to entertain you by reading from reading some more in the book, because Donna seems to have technical difficulty, but I'll try answering your questions. Why don't you ask me some questions and I will answer you? How about that? I'm looking at the chat, so I'm looking to see if you have some questions you'd like to ask me. This is the part of the show where now we're going to rely on you to be the interviewer. And I see Carlos Cumpianes there. Do I miss Chicago? Erica Atherton wants to know, do I miss Chicago? You know, I miss certain things about Chicago. Like, you know, I miss my family, and I miss Chicago hot dogs. I miss Italian lemonade on Taylor Street and Ferrara's Bakery on Taylor. I miss Chicago food. I miss my mother and my father, because, you know, they were Chicago to me. And now that they're gone, it's a real hub is gone from my life. But, you know, in the past, before the pandemic, I used to be in Chicago rather often. And so that's those things I miss. You know, I enjoy coming back much more now that I'm older than I did when I was young. I was haunted by a lot of ghosts when I was younger. Okay, do you believe that going to grad school at the University of Iowa for your MFA made you a better writer? That's an interesting question. I think going to Iowa forced me to find my voice right away. And if I hadn't gone to Iowa, it might have taken me longer. So I really had to like speed things up because I was so upset and angry when I was there. So I tried not to write like, you know, other people, but when you don't write like others, you're forced to find who you are. So in a way, even though it was a bad experience, it taught me that I had to revise and revise and revise and revise and revise. And it also forced me to search within myself to what made me unique. So it made me discover my voice. I don't think that they meant that, to do any of that. It just, was a byproduct of having a bad experience in graduate school. All right. It says there might be a blue bar across your screen asking if you change your mic settings. I don't see that, and don't ask me. I'm lucky I know how to turn on my computer. Somebody's asking me, I have trouble with descriptions or comparisons between things in my writing. How do you write in such a beautiful detail when telling a story? Well, let me advise you that the way to write beautifully is to read beautiful writers. And I'm going to recommend that you read the writers I admire. And they are, Mercè Rodoreda, the Catalan writer of the book Time of the Doves. I recommend you read Jean Rhys, Colette, Harriet Doer, Marguerite Duras, Dorothy Ellison, Elena Poniatowska, Rosario Castellanos, Elena Garro, to name a few. So if you read really great writers, you'll start learning. First you read the book for pleasure, and then you go back and you look under the hood and read the book again to learn how they did that. And so they become your maestras. So that's what I would recommend. And I also recommend you read poetry that makes you feel like writing poetry. Okay? Poetry is like the pinnacle of the genre. So I would recommend that for you. Has living in Mexico, in particular San Miguel de Allende, influenced your writing? If yes, how? Well, Donna was going to ask me about my new book of poetry, which I just handed in a couple of weeks ago. And a lot of the poems are about Mexico and about my life here and things that I see. So I do know that listening to Spanish has changed me. And I started to write poems in Spanish and then translate them into English. So I'm listening a lot to the Spanish language. How do you find the right publisher? Well, I don't know how to do that. When I first began, I published with a small press, and then an agent found me. So if you publish in small journals, a lot of times the agents are out there looking, and they will find you. So, I don't even know how to find an agent because my agents always found me. Okay. All right. Okay, Donna is sorry she can't get her mic back on. And I'm sorry, Donna, I'll just kind of take it from here. Maybe it was time for the universe, time for the questions that come. Okay, Richard asks, what's a family story you connected to a lot as a child that you held on to a lot as an adult and have written about before, or find yourself going back to a lot in your writing? But it's not from Richard, it's from Patricia. What's a family story? That's a good question. I like when I get a question, they have to think about it. I think I'm always writing about my mother and father, especially now that they're gone, and things that they said. My mother had a lot of funny way of speaking, even though English was her first language. She was from a working class home. So, she had a real Chicago accent. And those of you who are in Chicago know what I'm talking about. And, she would say, give me that tread, instead of give me that thread. And she would make up funny sayings. So I find myself going back to my mother's way of talking when I write with characters. Sometimes, I'll hear my mom, even if the character isn't my mom. So and then another thing is my father. He was Spanish language, was his first language. So he said things funny in a strange English. And I find myself sometimes coming back to their peculiar way of speaking in my writing. And then someone asked me, have I ever been approached about adapting any of my books to film? Yes, and a lot of times the projects have not been things that have worked out. Some of them seem more interesting than others. And, I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about something that is kind of in the works, but it's not happening yet. It's still in the very, fetal stage. So maybe in the future. Am I part of the literary circle in Mexico? No, my books aren't even published in Mexico. Starting next February, we will have a new edition of House on Mango Street, translated by another Mexican writer, by Fernanda Melchor, novelist. And it'll be the first time my books will be sold in Mexico after missing for 20 years. What film has influenced your writing? Oh, I don't know. I never thought about that, Carlos. I don't know. What film has influenced my writing? The kind of films I like are like Fellini movies or Vittorio De Sica, really sad or really hilarious. Post neorealism after World War II. I liked The White Sheik by Federico Fellini, very early black and white film. That I think gave me permission to write a Caramelo. That if you've never seen The White Sheik, it's a very, very early film of Federico Fellini, and it's so Mexican. Then his other films like Roma reminded me of my family. And so I think maybe the Italians, they gave me a lot of permission to write. Evan wants to know, of all the awards and recognitions I've received, which ones are you most proud of or means the most to you? It's kind of funny. I was just talking about this with a friend. The Ford Fellowship, Art of Change, was for political work and political activism. And that meant so much to me. It was one of maybe the highest awards the award that pleased me the most in my life, because it meant that the work I was doing wasn't just of literary value, but was being recognized for political activism. And I had to fight with that, because when House on Mango Street was published in 1984, the Chicano writers, the male writers, dismissed my book as not being a Chicano book, because it didn't sound like any of the other Chicano books at that time, that I was critical and made some criticisms of the community, and I wasn't, glorifying the barrio. So I got attacked. So I would say the Ford Art of Change Award, means so much to me. Donna, are you back?
I think I am. Can
There
you hear
you go.
me?
Yeah.
Thank you, Andrew. Apologies. But of course, you were doing great without me. Wonderful questions from the audience.
But I like your questions.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Do we have more?
Yeah, there's a question about writing every day. Is that something you subscribe to in your own writing life? Would you write whenever you're called to do? I cannot write every day. I wish I could, but I have to do things like go to the pool and do water aerobics to keep up my strength, or I have to go get a facial like I did today, or get my hair done for you. I did that. So if I leave the house and put on shoes, it's very likely that no writing is going to get done. I can do things like, maybe edit a friend's manuscript or write a blurb, but my own creative writing, it has to be like when I don't leave the house and I don't talk to anyone and I don't put on shoes and I don't comb my hair. Maybe I don't get dressed. I don't make the bed. It's just like straight, to my notebook or to my laptop. That's when I can write, because I think writing comes from the same place as dreaming, except you're dreaming with your eyes open. And in order to do that, you have to be in the zone. And if you start talking or doing other things, it takes energy. And in order to write, it takes all the energy you can muster. It sounds crazy, but on the days that I write or the days I Zoom, afterwards I'm so tired. And I'm working parts of my brain. So I wish I could say I wrote every day. I generally, the closer I am to a deadline, the more I write.
That's useful. You know, it's so interesting hearing you say that because for a lot of us that have been at home during the pandemic, I mean, I've spent much of my life in an office at the magazine. And I have to say, it's so being at home, being able to concentrate, you know, not that I don't love people and love my colleagues, but it's such a different frame of mind. And I can feel that that's the way you access the deeper levels.
Yes, yes. This has to. You have to be. It's like a sitting meditation. You have to get into that zone. You have to forget about everybody else and to go really, really profoundly deep into your interior, and just zone everything out. So I find I do it best on the days I'm messy and I don't look like an author. I don't have jewelry on. That's the. I don't even look at myself in the mirror on those days. That's when I work.
Yeah, I really understand that. How does reading play into your into your writing life?
Well, I have a lot of bedside books. I like to read everything except mysteries and cookbooks and romance novels and biographies of presidents. And I don't like reading about politicians at all. Or, I like reading essays and poetry, and I especially like big fat biographies of Van Gogh or
Right.
or Mae West or somebody like that. What was that question? I forgot my question.
No, that was perfect. The question was if there's forms of reading that are also good inspiration, good meditation.
When I finish the Zoom or when I finish writing, sometimes I'm so tired, there's a loop going on in your head. So I have to read something. And that's when I like reading biographies, when I'm tired after writing, because they can get me out of, circling that loop, or watching a movie. It also helps.
Right. Yeah, I know people were asking you about movies.
I watch a lot of movies. I watch a lot of documentaries. I watch really strange things that people wouldn't imagine that I watch.
No, I feel the same. I mean, your inner self, it's all nourishment for that. In your New York Times interview, you said something that I've often said too, that books are medicine. Yeah. You could talk a little bit, how are books medicine for you?
Well, Joy Harjo, I think, said it first, and I'm just kind of running with it. Yeah, and Joy Harjo also has a book released today too, her second part of her memoir, which I can't wait to read.
Poet Warrior, yeah.
Yeah, Poet Warrior. I think that I understand now that I'm older that certain books came to me when I wasn't ready. And when you're younger, you blame it on the writer. And now that I'm older, I realize, I reread that book that I was assigned in high school. It didn't do anything. I don't remember any of it. But now I'm rereading it again, and it's so meaningful because it came at the wrong time. And, who's to say when the right time is? It's hard to know. So sometimes we have to give books another chance. And sometimes they come too late in our lives. I read a lot of books that, I wish I would have had them when I was younger. They're too old now to read them. And I can start them and say, okay, but it's not going to change my life or change my writing. And I'm running out of time, so I'm always colgando, I'm always rummaging for that book that's going to make me a better human being and a better writer. And I don't know what that is. So I'm always like somebody who's hungry in the pantry. Is it going to be this almond butter? No. No. What can I eat? I'm looking for that book. That's why I have so many. I'm looking for that book that's going to save me, transform me, and make me a better human being. I just want to be a better human being, because if I'm a better human being, I'll be a better writer. And if I'm a better writer, I'll be a better human being.
So true. I think we're almost out of time. Well, I want to congratulate you on Marchita. I remember you. I'm so excited that you have a new book of poems coming out. Do you know the title yet? Did you already say that?
Yes,
Ooh.
the title is Woman Without Shame, and it will be out from Knopf and Vintage Espanol, an edition in Spanish, an edition in English. It's about 60 poems. It's a lot of poems.
Wow.
And, people think I write slowly, but I'm always working on a lot of things at the same time. And so fortunately, I was able to stay home last year, and I just finished the manuscript like 14 days ago. Yeah, so I'm very happy about that.
I'm very happy about that. That's very good news. Very good news, Sandra. Well, thank you so much for vamping along there, taking over when my sound.
That's all right. And they're telling me that after this event concludes, a replay will be accessible through this link. So that if you look at the chat,
Oh, there it is.
Tell you. And I want to thank my Chicago followers for sticking with me after all the bad things I said about Chicago. But Chicago's like an ex-boyfriend or an ex-husband. We don't live together anymore, but we acknowledge and have a great fondness for each other in retrospect. And I'm still writing about you, Chicago, like it or not. I hope I'm writing with cariño and love, because of the people that live there that I love.
You are, and we're with you on that. A city is a complicated being, just as people are. So love and hate exist together.
I'm happy that I'm still claimed as a daughter of Chicago.
Oh, you are indeed.
And everyone out there, please eat a Chicago hot dog. Send me photos of your hot dogs on my Instagram. I so miss Chicago hot dogs.
Well, I hope you're able to come here for your next book, Sandra. That would be so exciting.
Maybe for the poetry book?
Yeah. A year from now, it could be a different world.
We hope so.
We do. You stay well. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Donna. Appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone out there. Enjoy the book.